Hello, my friend. I am really happy to be here with you today. It's actually been a little while since I've recorded a podcast, and I was thinking about where I wanted to begin again. And I kept coming back to one simple thought. So many of us become consumed by surviving a divorce, for example, or something else that's challenging in your life. And so we never stop to ask ourselves, what comes after that? What comes after we have survived? We spend months, sometimes years, focused on getting through it, getting through court, getting through mediation, getting through another weekend without the kids, getting through the loneliness, getting through one more angry row of text messages from our ex that send us into a spiral, or a really bad news email from our lawyer. And please don't hear me saying there's anything wrong with spiraling when those things happen. When your world falls apart, surviving is exactly what your nervous system is designed to do. But eventually, there comes a moment when surviving isn't enough anymore. And I think that's the moment I want to talk about today. Because I don't believe divorce is the destination. I think it's the doorway. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of A Blessing in Divorce. I am so grateful to be allowed into your headset and day today. My name is Elizabeth, and I'm the host of this podcast and the owner and founder of the Separation Club, which is the club you never wanted to be part of, but the best club to be in if you're going through separation and divorce. Here we talk about how to heal, move forward, and find love if you're so inclined. Also, motherhood through divorce, finding yourself, and creating the life you deserve. Our tools are community, sisterhood, honesty, vulnerability, spirituality, and coaching. And that's when we aren't talking to our experts. I'm also a divorced mother of 4 adult sons, remarried, and a stepmom to 3. So we will be talking about everything that goes with all of that here. If you are recently separated, thinking of separating, divorcing, or even beyond your divorce, but still feeling it, then this is the podcast for you. Welcome back. When women first begin working with me, they often think they're asking sort of just one question, or they come to me with a question. They'll ask things like, how do I get over this person, my spouse, my partner? How do I stop thinking about them? How am I going to survive this? They tell me they feel broken. They tell me they can't imagine living without this person. This was their best friend, their soulmate. I hear all the things. And so they ask, how do I get over this? But after we've talked for a little while, I realize they're asking something much deeper. What they're really asking is, who am I now? And I'm not even sure they realize they're asking that. I realize they're asking that because they don't know who they are without this person anymore. I spent 20 years with my ex-husband, and I was only 22 when I met him. So basically half my life had been with him, and pretty much my entire adult life. I had grown up, become a mother 4 times. We'd gone through life together. I didn't know what it was like to not be with him. The only life I'd known before him was kind of as a kid, living at my parents or whatever. So it's really hard sometimes, especially after a longer marriage, to imagine life without this person. So the question really becomes, who are you now? And you ask things like, or you might want to ask, I should say, can I trust myself anymore? Will I ever feel like me or feel whole again? People don't really ask, will I feel like me? It's more, will I ever feel okay? Will I ever feel normal? Whatever normal is, right? Will I ever be happy? Can I still have a good life? And those are very different questions. And I mean, of course, the answer is yes to all of them. But what I want you to know is the answers to these questions are not found in a lawyer's office. They are not found going through your finances. They are not answered when divorce papers are signed either. They don't get answered just because you have finally finished all that stuff, because a lot of you wait. They're answered little by little as we begin coming home to ourselves. And what does that mean? Well, it means reconnecting with who you are, reconnecting with what matters to you, and reconnecting with the person who had no doubt that she could manage on her own back in the day, right? Nothing has really changed other than that you've spent all these years with someone else. But you are as capable, in fact, way more capable now because of life experience than you ever were when it comes to being on your own and managing life. And I think one of the reasons we stay stuck for so long is because survival is loud. Survival demands all of our attention. We are in fight or flight when we're going through divorce. Our world has been shaken. And you know what I'm talking about. I don't need to describe it. There's paperwork, there's financial decisions, there's kids to consider. Where are you going to live? And then there's all your friends. Who goes with who? Who's choosing sides? What about family opinions? And underneath all of that is fear. Fear of just about everything that's happening. Will you be alone forever? How will you manage your finances? All the things, right? And so our brains become completely focused on making it through today. That's all we can kind of manage because we're in fight or flight. It's just, what am I going to do for the next hour? How am I going to get out of bed this morning? Tomorrow feels too far away to even be considered. Dreaming about a future feels impossible. And I know I'm a little bit guilty of this because I will say things like, think about what you want your dream life to look like. Think about what you want your life to look like when this is over. And I understand, I get it. Like, I know that for you, especially if you're in the early days, the early months, you're in the thick of all of this, thinking about a dream life seems impossible. Maybe the dream for now can simply be getting through the day, or wrapping this up, or getting it through the week, or managing the weekend without the kids. Maybe that's the dream right now. Getting through a day without crying. Having a shower. That's the dream. So dreams can be whatever you need them to be. And right now you're surviving. And so give yourself a dream, some goal, something that makes you feel like you have kicked it all ass today, at the end of the day. Even imagining happiness can feel like betrayal when we're going through this. So much has happened, so much pain, so many hurtful conversations, fights, things have been said, things have been done. And so the thought of being happy is almost like a betrayal of yourself, because it's almost like saying, well, then this all didn't matter. Then it's like this didn't happen. Or perhaps if your partner cheated, then if you're getting happy again, then did it even matter that they cheated? Is that just suddenly make it okay, right? So imagining happiness can almost feel like a betrayal. So if that feels really heavy, like I said, focus on the much smaller successes. So we can keep our head down and keep surviving for now. However, the problem is that weeks become months and months become years. And somewhere along the way, surviving quietly becomes who we are. We become that person who is dragging through the day, whose head is always a little bit lowered, whose voice might always be just a little bit too either quiet or shrill, or just has that edge to it that just reminds everyone around you that you've never fully let go of the pain, that you are still just surviving. You are not doing anything wrong, my friend. It's just a place where we can get stuck. And today I want to make you aware of that, because as I said, weeks can become months and months can become years. And no one ever tells us there's a point where we're allowed to lift our heads again. No one says like, hey, you're allowed now. What they do say is like, oh, you're not okay yet? You haven't gotten over this yet? I remember hearing that. Oh, you're not over him yet? Or, oh, you're still feeling sad about that? Well, that's not helpful. That is not helpful at all. But the better place to be is when we realize days have passed and we've stopped asking ourselves how to get through it. We realize we're just actually living life and we're not fighting it anymore. We're not struggling to survive anymore. We're not asking ourselves, how am I going to get through the day? We start to realize we're actually just doing the day. We're actually okay now. We are doing it. And what we're doing is we are surviving. We're not just trying to, we're not struggling to, we're not just like, treading water with barely having our mouth, for air. We are actually doing okay. And that's when it's time to start asking, who do I want to become because of this? And that's a very different question. One keeps us looking backwards, and then the other one gently turns our face toward the future. Who do I want to become because of this? Instead of asking, how do I get through this? I also tend to see something else happen with my clients as time goes on and as they do this work, as they do the coaching or do the things to help themselves heal. I see many women tell me that they want a new life, that they're getting either excited to start something new, or they're feeling a little off because they don't have somewhere, like they don't have that view yet, that passion, that purpose, whatever it is. So a lot of women come to me for coaching because they're looking for a purpose. That's what they often say. And they feel like they should have some purpose now. And maybe the purpose is to just be a mom, for example, or to do another year of, not just surviving, but actually just finding your footing and starting to find the ease in life. That could be all that's needed. But what they say to me is, I want a new life. I want to start something new. I want a purpose. I want a passion. And then as we begin to talk, I realize it's not that they so much want a new life. They want the old one, but without the pain. They want the marriage they thought they had. The retirement that they had planned, Christmas morning together, growing old with one person, and that dream deserves to be grieved. It's okay that it feels hard sometimes, even when it's all over. I remember that part. I remember like fighting through the divorce and going through all the courts and, kind of just pushing through and surviving. And then it was over. It was like, yeah, I'm going to start my new life. I'm going to do all these cool things. I'm going to be all happy now. And then one day I would be standing in the kitchen sobbing for no reason. Or suddenly something would happen, whatever. I can't think of specifics, but I would just be hit with this ache in my heart. It was almost like I was thrown back to the early days of the separation. And so I went to my therapist. I'm like, what is wrong with me? And what he explained to me is that what I was feeling was grief. And my answer was immediately, but I don't miss him. I don't want to be with him. I'm so done with him. I'm not in love with him. I don't want to be with him. I don't think about him. I don't dream about him. And he's like, no, it's not that. You're grieving the life you thought you were going to have. You're grieving the things that were good. Your body still remembers. Your body remembers the dreams and the good times. And so your body's still letting go. And so you're still grieving. And at first, I'll be honest with you, I was bothered. I was irritated that I was grieving someone who had treated me so badly and who I really did not want to be with. I'm like, why is my body doing that to me? Why am I doing that to myself? Why am I grieving someone that is not good for me? But then with time, I thought, there were lots of good times. I was in love with him at one time. I did have dreams with him. And so I thought, okay, if this is my body letting go of that, if this is me acknowledging these things that were present in my heart, in my soul, in my bones, then okay, I will cry and I will shed them and I will let go of those things. Because here's the good thing. Here's what I discovered. When you let go of those, when you let yourself grieve and you have those random crying fits in the kitchen or whatever way it shows up for you, that's when you create space. That is when you create space for new things to come into that space that you're releasing. Your tears are literally washing the grief away. So if you suddenly realize when you drop off the kids at his house one weekend and you see them run off and you just sit there and cry and you're grieving a simpler life, a time when you didn't have to drop off your kids for the weekend and then miss them all weekend, also know that you are creating space for a new life. You're rebuilding your life, and that does not mean you have to forget what you had or that's something, that has to be erased from your memory. And it's not about recreating what you lost. It is about creating something new. Maybe you've always dreamed of traveling. You can travel now. Maybe your ex didn't like to travel like mine. All he wanted to do was go to our cabin in the summer, and that was it. I love traveling. That's been one of the things that I've embraced. That's what I did with some of that space. Maybe you've longed for a more peaceful home, one that was, I don't know if decorated differently is the right word, but maybe it is, or that just has a different feel to it than your marital home. You can still create that space. Maybe you want more laughter in your life. Maybe you want more friends, new friends, connection. Maybe you want a beautiful garden. Maybe this new life is about slow, quiet mornings with coffee. Whatever it is that you love about life, the moments that feel special, the moments that make a day feel good, the little things that you do that help you skip along to the next one instead of dragging yourself to the next moment. Those are the moments that matter. These are the things that you will build more and more of in your new life. Those things did not belong to your marriage, even if they existed there. But they didn't belong to the marriage. They belonged to you. You were the one who brought those in there. You're the one who did that there as well. Well, now you're going to recreate it. You're going to do those things that matter to you in your way, in your space, in your home. This belongs to you. And sometimes I think we just forget that we can create peace, harmony, love, connection, excitement, adventure, all the things in our new life. We don't need the other person to have that. We don't need a person to have that. You need you. That's it. I loved my Saturday mornings when I got divorced. So it's funny because Saturday mornings when I first got married was also probably the thing I loved, because the week was over, we'd get up in the morning and we'd plan our weekend together. And then as the years went by and kids and busyness and then a bad marriage, and so that stopped being a thing. And I remember the sadness I often felt on Saturday mornings when I would get up and ask my ex, so what are you doing today? Because it wasn't we anymore. It wasn't us. It was, what are you doing? Well, here's what I'm doing. And there was no real effort to try to combine those two things. And so when my marriage first ended, I really loved having my Saturday mornings back, where there was no pressure to try to coordinate anything, to make anyone else happy or anything like that. It was just me and the boys, and I could just plan my day with them. And if my youngest two went to see their dad, my oldest generally didn't, then, I just had a really quiet morning with my older ones, and the little ones went to their dads. Or if we were all in the house, then we just had a big long breakfast, or we took them off to their activities and did all those things. But it was, the simplicity of it was there now, and the tension was gone. And so I allowed myself to enjoy that instead of grieving that somebody else wasn't there, because it wasn't good anyway. So I think we need to be honest with ourselves about what we loved about the things that we grieve, and how we can actually recreate that in our new life, and not rosy or gloss it over, pretending like your ex actually had any kind of a good part in those things anymore. Like, might have one day or once upon a time, but not anymore. So, does divorce change you? Does it change who you are? Fundamentally, probably not. Many will say that it did. And I guess it can be true depending on how you look at it. Because I don't believe that we just become different people. Pain, for example, is not some kind of magic potion that changes who you are. And while I do believe that things happen for a reason, there isn't always a reason for why things happen, if that makes sense. So I would never tell someone to necessarily be grateful for the hardest thing they've ever experienced. But I do think something important happens when our lives stop working. Pain, divorce, all the things that happen, conflict, it interrupts the autopilot. It interrupts what we've just been doing because we've been doing it. We don't think about it anymore. We just do it. And, before divorce, Many of us are also simply surviving. We don't think of it in the same way because we're part of this couple and part of the family and we're fitting into that sort of role in our society. But many of us are just surviving and playing a role, whether it's wife and or, by the way, mother, employee, caretaker, peacekeeper, people pleaser. And then suddenly it stops. Suddenly everything changes. It just comes to this abrupt stop. Some of those roles continue. Some of those roles stop. But either way, they all change. Everything changes. And so we create space, or there is space that is created for questions that we might have never asked ourselves before. Like, what do I actually enjoy doing? What feels peaceful to me? What kind of friendships do I want? What do I believe? What do I want from my future? Who am I? Right? How many of you have asked that? I sure did. And who am I when no one else is telling me who I'm supposed to be? And those are really amazing questions. They're not easy, but they're really beautiful. And this is the part of my divorce that I was grateful for. So as much as I said earlier that I'm not telling you to be grateful for having gone through this horrible thing. What I was grateful for was what I learned from it. Learned about myself. I was grateful for discovering who I really am again, for connecting with that part of myself, connecting with my joy, my peace, my passion, the things that I care about, my values, my integrity, all the things that I didn't even think about anymore because I was on this autopilot of being who I was with him. We had our lives. We did these things. And I mean, I didn't become a different person, but I became me in a big way. I was no longer trying to fit in with him and fit in with what he wanted and fit in with his moods and fit in with whatever, all the things. I could now make choices entirely on my own. I could take the time to sit down and ask myself, so what is it that I want? Or how do I feel about that? Or do I really want to continue to be friends with that person? And I could take my time and answer that, and I didn't have to consider, but it's also like his friend, or it's this or that. I didn't have to think about those things. I could paint the walls in my new house whichever color I wanted. I could choose bedding. That was girly. I had fun with that. I could spend time reconnecting with the things that mattered to me and the things that made me smile and the things that made me happy. And I had not done that in a long, long time. And before you jump in and say, but I was happy, my kids make me happy, I was happy with him. Let's really look at it. You were happy doing the things that you had to do to keep things going. You were happy. Of course, our kids make us happy. We don't even need to say that. That happens no matter what. But we need to allow ourselves enough space to make ourselves happy. Like just taking time to do something with yourself that makes you happy. Saying no to something that you don't want to do, that you never felt you could say no to before because it was what you'd always done. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So the harder you push back on this, honestly, the harder I'm going to push back and say, when's the last time you really sat down with yourself and asked yourself, what do you enjoy? What feels peaceful? What kind of friendships do you want? What do you believe in? Who are you anyway? What is your integrity? What are the values that you will, the value that the hill that you will die on, so to speak? What is that for you? If you're anything like me, you don't know the answers to those questions right now, but you will. You will. And that is what you have time for now. And that is beautiful. And that is something to be grateful for. I also think we have an interesting idea of what freedom looks like when we are married, especially, and then what it's going to look like when we come out of the marriage. And I think we imagine these dramatic transformations, selling everything, moving across the world. Actually, let's be honest, none of us are thinking that because we're not living in Eat, Pray, Love. Most of us are just thinking like, oh my God, what can I afford? So that doesn't really happen. It really doesn't. More often, freedom is really quiet. And that's okay. Freedom is sleeping through the night again. It's making dinner without being criticized or without worrying about that you have to add potatoes and meat, that the salad is actually good enough. It's sitting on your porch or on your balcony or in your backyard with a cup of coffee and realizing your nervous system isn't waiting for the next argument or wondering what's going to happen next. It's taking deeper breaths. That's freedom. It's buying yourself flowers simply because they make you smile. It's laughing in a silly way again, really laughing. And it's making decisions because they feel right to you, instead of because someone else approves or has asked you to make your decision that way. Freedom is not always exciting. Sometimes freedom is simply the absence of fear. And honestly, that's a pretty beautiful place to begin. So, as I wrap this up today, I'd love to leave you with one question, not as homework, but not as something you even have to figure out tonight. Just something to think about, like when you're out for a drive or sitting with that coffee on your porch. If your divorce isn't the end of your story, what would you want the next chapter to be about? What if you're writing this book and the divorce is chapter 1? What is the rest of the book about? It's not going to be about what happened because that ended in chapter 1. It's not going to be about what he did. That also ended. And it's not about what you lost. Chapter 2 is going to be about you. And what will it be about? What do you want your life to stand for? And by the way, no pressure. I am not asking you to think of some incredible purpose in life and some way to change the world here. It's not about that. It's about wanting to stand for being yourself, laughing a little more at silly things. You know, the whole like dance like nobody's watching, sing like nobody's listening. It's about standing up for yourself, standing up for your kids, standing up for a way of life that you really, really believe in because it feels peaceful. It feels free. When people tell your story, read your book out loud to someone 20 years from now, you don't want the headline to be, "She got divorced." That's not the name of the book. That's not your life. That's not the eulogy you want. Oh, she was a beautiful woman, lived a beautiful life. She got divorced. Which one do you want? How about she became incredibly brave. She gathered people. She created beautiful things. She traveled. She learned to trust herself. She built a life that was her home, that felt like freedom and peace and all wrapped up into one beautiful life. Build a life for yourself where you are the main character for the rest of your life. Deserve it. Know that you deserve it. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to do anything to earn it. You deserve it. Accept that you deserve it. Create a life for yourself just because you want it and just because you deserve that. How does that sound? I would love to hear from you about what resonated most with you in this episode. What was the part that made you go, yeah, I need to think about that? Or maybe, yeah, I've done that. I actually have done that. I'm not just surviving anymore. I am thriving, because that's the next stop, my friend. And I know when I started the Separation Club back in 2019, and my reason for starting it, somebody asked me, why do you want to do this? Because I don't believe you have to just survive a divorce. I believe you should reach for thriving. I want these women to not just survive, I want them to thrive. And I want you reaching for that. And even though it might feel really impossible and not achievable today, I still want you to reach for it. Because if you don't reach for it, my friend, you will not get it. So let's start reaching. Just get up this morning and tell yourself, today is about surviving, but I'm on the road to thriving. I think that's a good place to stop. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. It's been really nice to get back to this. So if this episode spoke to you, I would love it if you shared it with somebody else who might need a reminder that there is life waiting on the other side of this, whatever this is for her. And if you're looking for a place where you don't have to navigate all of this by yourself, where you can get inspiration with others who understand, I would love to welcome you into our community in the Separation Club in our Rising Sisterhood membership. We meet every week. We have honest conversations just like this one. And it's a place where you don't have to explain why this is hard. You simply get to arrive exactly as you are. And when you tell us you're having a bad day, we get it. You don't have to justify it. No one's going to tell you shouldn't be. We're just going to listen to you. So until next time, be gentle with yourself. This is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of your future. Have a wonderful day.